I think most of us would agree that, especially these days, that being genuine in business and showing who you are is so critical in today's world. There's so much phony baloney going on out there. Who you are as a person and a character really says something about your business. And so, if we're going to do business with people, we're going to offer a product or service, serve people in any way. I think it's so critical that we understand our customers and that they understand us. If we've got the same moral compass, so to speak, than our customers do, we're going to relate to them and we're going to be able to serve them better. And, for me personally, that's my Christian faith, and so how can I not integrate that into my business, in my conversations with people? It's who I am.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I'm Larry Davis, and this is the Growth State of Mind. And today, I'm having a conversation with Robert Poole, and we're going to talk about how God used a major tragedy in his business and in his personal life to kind of force him to grow and to bring him closer to God. And so, let me introduce you to my guest. My guest today is Robert Poole. He is the co-founder of Total Business Results, where he helps entrepreneurs and go from operator to business owner, and it helps just get them free from the day-to-day operations of their business, so that they can finally achieve the freedom that they wanted to achieve when they set out to start their business. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Robert Poole. Hey, Robert, what's going on?
Hey, great. Thanks so much for having me on, Larry.
Yep. Hey, we're gonna just dive right in. So you're a business owner. You're a Christian business owner. Let me say it like that. You're a Christian business owner, and you say that one of the things that you say is you say that we can't separate our faith from our business. Why do you believe that?
Yeah, well, I think I think most of us would agree that, especially these days, that being genuine in business and showing who you are is so critical in today's world. There's so much phony baloney going on out there, that who you are as a person and a character really says something about your business. And so, if we're going to do business with people, we're going to offer a product or service, serve people in any way. I think it's so critical that we understand our customers and that they understand us. If we've got the same moral compass, so to speak, than our customers do, we're going to relate to them and we're going to be able to serve them better. And, for me personally, that's my Christian faith, and so how can I not, you know, uh, integrate that into my business, in my conversations with people? It's who I am, and so I don't try to hide it. I certainly don't push it on anybody, but just like you, Larry, when you're talking to a friend or whatever, hey, you got to be real, you got to be you. And so business is all about relationships and people. So I think you can't really separate the two, because I think it's one and the same, really.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know a lot of people don't necessarily agree with that concept as far as integrating your faith, into your business. And like you said, it's not necessarily about walking around with a Bible
Mhm.
and using church lingo or Christian lingo. It's not necessarily that. It's just like you said, the way you serve. And but a lot of people do try to separate those two things. I think that especially for the people who are actually Christians and then try to separate the two, I think that they don't have a firm understanding of what their faith is when they try to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, what are your thoughts on that? Like, why do you think that other people try to separate it?
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because I'll be completely honest. I probably wasn't always that comfortable in sharing that. I didn't, I wouldn't volunteer it necessarily that I was a Christian, or that sort of thing. Particularly when I was younger, I think you go through life and you're trying to get confidence and everything. You're worried about what people think, and but eventually I realized that the single most important thing to me in this world is Jesus and my faith. And if I can't put that first, then nothing else really matters. And if somebody doesn't like that, then hey, that's their deal. You do you. but I'm not going to be ashamed of it. And because we're all going to have to account, and I don't want to be accounting before our Lord, and as He says, if you're ashamed of me, then I'll be ashamed of you, type of, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that really hit me, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to shy away from letting people know what my belief system is. Like I said, I'm not, a thumper, if you will, carrying around, a Bible and, quoting Bible verses to strangers and everything. But if somebody asks me or, what do I think about this or what do I believe? Absolutely. I'm going to talk to them about it. So I think it comes from a little confidence or a lack of confidence in what other people think is the biggest thing. And as we, grow and mature, usually that gets a little bit less than when you're younger, but some people never get over it. So, but I think it's lack of confidence more than anything.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I can be honest with myself, and I've done that myself. And when I'm operating in the marketplace, and you kind of shy away from who you really are.
Mhm.
And I agree. Some settings or some scenes, it is appropriate, that to not necessarily talk about certain things, and I get it. But I'm guilty of that myself, and like you said, it was, now I don't necessarily do it as much because I'm maturing and understanding. At the end of the day, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater just because I'm trying to make a deal or whatever the
Right.
case may be. So
Yeah, no, and I'll give you an example there. What one of the things I think my just my background, my sister, although we both grew up in a Christian household, my sister is quite the opposite of me. She went a different direction and politically very left wing and just a different, completely opposite moral values and everything. But we still have a loving relationship, and I still do my best to to live my faith. But we don't, it's not a point of friction between us. She knows where I stand. I try to do my thing by example, but it's not something where it has to clash. So, I respect the fact that she thinks the way she does, and I'll leave it to the Lord to, do His thing with her. But it's the same thing in business, like you said. Sometimes, it's more appropriate to address the issue than not. But hey, you got to respect what other people's beliefs are. We're all going to have to account for our own actions, and yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
yeah, and you're right, and like you said, and what you said is important to remember because for whatever reason, a lot of people can't separate. Like if a lot of people can't disagree and still coexist. Like
Mm.
for whatever reason, people disagree, and then because I disagree, I have to throw you away or I have to not have anything to do with you. And what you're saying is like, no, we can disagree, but I can still love you, or I can still respect you, or we can still do business, or whatever the case may be. And so I think a lot of that gets lost in today. Well,
Yeah,
it's probably, I mean, forever over, through the course of history, people have been fighting about different things. So
yeah.
that's just the way it is.
But
So
yeah, it's definitely seems like we're definitely have a hard time communicating these days. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so you like I said in the introduction, you kind of went through um some hard times, some tragedy,
Mhm.
and you feel that God used that. You feel that God sometimes uses tragedy and difficulty in our lives for our own good. Like what? Explain that. Explain, and I'm not asking you to explain why. Like I'm not asking you to explain God, but why do you feel that he uses these tragedies and these bad experiences for our own good?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, Larry. Uh I went through. I Just to give you a little background. I started a business about in 2002 with my business partner. We started from nothing and built it into a multi-million-dollar business. I had a great business partner. We really got along well. We complemented each other. Unlike a lot of business partnerships that don't end up well, this one really but so I was very blessed, and went through that whole period, and everything was great. And then 2017, one morning, I came to work, and he didn't, and he had a heart attack the night before, and so suddenly I'm in charge of this multi-million-dollar company by myself. And it was I had been sort of coasting for years, and being able to take time off. I took 3 weeks off my honeymoon, and I was always at my kids' stuff, and quite frankly, didn't work that hard because I had somebody else that was helping handle things. And then so I was thrust into this position. And then at the same time, I had legal issues to do with his estate and all these financial things, very, very scary things. Lawsuits started to fly, all the things that can go wrong, when it comes to death and money. And it's funny because sometimes in life, we're kind of like, yeah, I know you're there, God, but hey, things are going pretty good, so I'm just going to do my thing. And then when stuff starts falling apart, then we're like, oh Lord, now I need you. Gotta we start waking up. And this was one of those times where I think I wasn't nearly as close to God as I am today, and I think it was because I was kind of doing my own thing, so to speak. And this was a wake up call where I think God used a situation that really shocked me, and kind of, hey, wake up, Robert. I'm still here, and I'd been a Christian most of my adult life, and or since I was 9 years old, actually. So, I, like a lot of Christians, my faith kind of waxed and waned. But you know, this particular experience, kind of, I was so bad that I literally remember very distinctly that I thought my life is falling apart in every possible way. Stressing my marriage, my family life, all the things that I had taken for granted. What do I do? And so I literally sat down one night before I went to bed and said, I'm just going to start reading the Bible again, because I hadn't been reading it. And so I just started in the Gospels, and I said, even if I read for 10 minutes, I'm going to read every night. And so I read, every night, and I have since, and this is 2017. So, but what that I got more familiar with, the New Testament in particular, and started to see things that I never saw before. And one of the things that I saw in there was in Matthew 10:29, when Jesus is talking about the concept of worry. And he said, something to the effect that, our two sparrows, aren't they sold for a penny? Yet, your heavenly Father, not one of them falls out of the sky without his consent. So I realized that, and this would seem obvious to maybe to some Christians, but to me, even though I had that background, I realized, wow, God is actually in control of every single thing going on. And I said, so this thing I'm going through right now, this whole tragedy, this losing my, very good friend who was like a brother to me, my business partner, and all these other things, he's allowing this to happen. And I realized it was allowing it to happen to force me to grow, force me to become a better person, and force me to come back to him, and call me back to him, because I drifted away. And so I went through this process, and it turned out to be a very good thing. Obviously, I'd love to have my business partner back, and I miss him and everything, but it's an example, and you see it throughout Scripture. Quote, bad things that happen, but it's not that you're looking for the silver lining or the positives. It's about, and I've taken this philosophy of, how does this going to force me to grow? Because I know one thing, at least with me and most humans, we like the status quo. And if we're not pushed to do something, it's much easier to stand still and, continue to do what we've always done. And so I think God particularly used that event to force me to change in my business, force me to change how I was conducting it, so that the business wasn't relying on me anymore. And it changed my personal relationship with him. And I feel closer to him than I've ever had in my life. I have got this fire to study the word, and all kinds of things that I never did before. Just and it was all comes back to that one verse. It was just like a light bulb that went off. And so it's, there's a lot to it, but that's the, sort of the big concept, I think, that I wanted to get across, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Well, first of all, I want to say that that's hard. That's definitely hard, because it's like a double loss, I should say, because on one hand it's your business partner, someone that you know work with on a day to day basis, and someone that you can you come to rely on, like you said, and all those things, and then there's the other side of it, like that's a friend,
Mhm.
all those years together, that's a friend, so that's like a double loss, and so that's hard. That's hard. Um, but like you said, I don't know why things work the way they work. But unfortunately, those things are the things that gets our attention.
Mhm.
And you're right. It's all through scripture, um, about how things happen, uh, to set us up for something else, right? And
Mhm.
we don't really understand it. We don't fully understand it, but at the end, everything is going to be better, or everything is working for our good.
Right.
Romans 8:28. Everything is working for our good. Um, and God's methods, we don't understand them, but they they work regardless of what we may think about it, feel about it. We can kick and scream, but those methods work. It's just like as a parent, you know our kids, and then when we were kids, you couldn't understand why I can't eat Skittles for dinner, or but you can't really understand it, but your parents know. And as a parent now, you know what your desire, where you're taking that child, but they don't know it and they cannot comprehend it.
Mhm.
And it just seems like, oh, you're killing me, but God knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he knew what he was doing in your situation, and it's only on the other side that we see what happened. And like you said, you wish you could have your friend back, of course, but uh at the end of the day, your friend is I don't want to use cliches about he's in a better place, but it's all a part of God's plan. Like, that's not lost. He's where he is,
Mhm.
and he's at peace, I would say that. And so it's God knew what he was doing, and it brought you to where you can grow as a person. I don't have that story, but we've all got our stories. For me, it was a divorce that made me wake up. And so for everybody's different things. And for you, it was the loss of a business partner, a loss of a friend. And so how did that, okay, after that happened, you started digging your way kind of out. You knew where to go. Same for me. When I got in trouble years ago, I knew where to go, because like you, I was raised in the church. And so, and I accepted Christ as a young person, but I don't really know I don't really know how to live as a Christian when you're young,
Right.
and you don't know what this means. You just know, okay, I'm a Christian, or whatever. But you don't learn until tragedy happens, how to actually live your life as a Christian,
Mhm.
right? And so you started pulling yourself out of the pit, so to speak, and things started to change for you. And so, what happened to you personally and to your business as a result of this tragedy?
Well, I think and you made a good point. I think the biggest thing is what it allowed me to address problems, because in business, problems are, I mean, that's what we get paid to do, is solve problems. It's just every day, and in life, that's the part of it. So it's how you deal with those problems. And so after that experience and learning through that, I think it allowed me to start addressing problems differently, and I started to live by this mantra that what happens to me happens for me. And so this something would happen in business or personally, that, and in the past I would stress out and, just, oh my gosh, the world's ending, and, what am I going to do? And, I better pray harder. And, and this allowed me to say, okay, this is bad, let's accept that, whatever. But I'm going to look at this and say, I know God's got a plan here. What is this going to force me to do that I wouldn't do otherwise? How is this going to force me to grow? And so, it's little things, but for instance, you and I wouldn't be talking if this was 2017, because my business partner was the public face of the company, he did all the interaction with clients and everything. I kind of ran things behind the scenes. I didn't care to be involved in the public part of it, but God has pushed me into that limelight, the spotlight, and got me to do a lot of these things I wasn't doing before. And that fundamentally changed the direction of our business, because I realized that I had to be much more of a leader in our business. I had to be much more of the public face, and be the leader for our employees. And, in my own personal life, I had to start looking at our problems differently, looking at my marriage differently, looking at how to be a father, and thinking, okay, how is this going to get me to grow? How do I get better? And so it's kind of a ripple effect, if that makes sense. That started with that little thing, but it affected all areas of my life, in a good way.
Totally, totally. Yeah. And that's why I tell people that it's not necessarily what happens to you. It's how you think about what happened to you,
Mhm.
right? When you think about, what happened to you and you put it into proper perspective, you can understand that it is to make you better. And like you said, it has pushed you to the forefront. It has made you it's gotten you out of your comfort zone. It's made you do things that you probably wouldn't have done before. It's basically stretch you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So um yeah, and so it's like that, these things, all these things happen for a reason. And and I always say this as well, that people should change their relationship with failure. Like, people, when you change your relationship with failure, you can understand that failure is ultimately there to help you, right?
Mhm.
But people don't want to deal with that. And I would say, good for you that you were able to use this and bounce back to get better, because you could have gotten worse. So why do you think that you didn't get worse, or you didn't go into uh go backwards, as far as go into a deep depression or start drinking or something like that? Like, why do you think that you kind of went the other way?
I would like to take credit for it, but I'll just tell you, I think that is all God, and um, again, it's His will that He had some plan that I'm a part of, and He's the only one that could have brought me through that. I could not have done it myself. So, I think that it really was, quite frankly, it's a blessing of God that He said, "Hey, I want Robert to do this future thing that I'm preparing him for, and so I'm going to get him through this, keep him from going the other direction." Because, as I said, left to my own devices, I probably would have been, drunk in an alley somewhere or whatever, but thank for the grace of God, that He chose to, help me grow through this thing. So I will give all the glory to Him on that, not take any credit.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and one of the things you say, like, okay, all this has kind of changed your mindset. It's changed your thinking, the way you approach problems and things like that. So, do you use the I guess the way you think, and the skills that you've learned about yourself? Do you kind of use those with other people, kind of like in a mentoring kind of way, or with your employees, or like, how do you use those things?
Yeah, I think I would say, in a couple different ways. One of them, is me personally having to, address problems and things like that, how to deal with that, and I do find myself, when something that, bad or whatever happens, whatever word you want to use, difficult circumstances, challenges, whatever. When that happens, the first thing I do is I find myself mentally, okay, this is bad. It is what it is. Let's not sugarcoat it. But the question is not, necessarily even how am I going to fix it? It's, okay, what's this going to force me to do? Who's this going to force me to become? And then I start figuring out, how do I become that person that can deal with that problem? And then, so I try to get that same message across to my employees. I mean, I'm not up there preaching and, telling them things, but, as things happen, as an example, let's say a client calls in and they've got a problem with, XYZ thing or whatever. And my employees ask me, well, what do we do about this? And I said, well, okay, so this is a legitimate problem. How are we going to change ourselves as a company to be able to deal with that kind of problem so that it doesn't happen again? What is this going to force us to do? Who are we going to become? So when we start asking questions like that, I think it really empowers people, and I've noticed that some of my employees are starting to get it. It's not an overnight process, but I think I've started to see them think about things in those terms. And this goes right back to our initial discussion. We were talking about how do you integrate your faith in business. And all my employees know I'm a Christian, but they're not all Christians. I'm not one of those companies that only hire Christians or whatever. But so they know where this comes from. But they also know, and they've heard me say it, truth is truth, and principles that are true are true regardless, whether you are a Bible believer or not. And and this is one of those principles. And if we look at it that way, then it can. And so I've started to see them start to take on that mentality. So and of course I talk about the same concept with my clients as well when I'm doing one-on-one coaching sessions and that sort of thing. But so it's really integrated all over the place, if you will, because it's just part of who I am now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right, man. It's fascinating. Yeah, it's just funny how things can come full circle in our lives, and but we know that God is in control, and like I said earlier, we don't always understand,
You
but things end up working out. So as we get ready to draw to a close, what would you say to, let's just say you're coaching another business owner, what would you say to them if they asked you, like if they asked you, Robert, uh how does this whole faith thing, how does me viewing things from a faith perspective, how does all this help me in my business? Because some people may want to know, how does it help me as a man or a woman? They may want to know that, and you probably can tell them that too. But for those who want to know, because they probably understand how faith can help them as a person. Like we can understand that. But for that business owner that asks you, Robert, how does this help me in my business? Like, what did it do for you? Like, what can you tell me to get me to kind of change my perspective on faith and how to live my life, or how to think about things? Like, how can this help me in my business? If a person asks you that, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say, the number one thing is that, and what I really found was that, and it goes back originally again, what we were talking about is that we have this perception that business is, outside of our faith or outside of Christianity. But, when you actually study the Bible and start to become familiar with it, business is all over the place. If you look at most of the major characters in the Bible, most of them are entrepreneurs, of some sort, and most of them are very wealthy. And so there's stories starting as early as the Garden of Eden that have, like I teach a lesson about, I call him, so the OG of marketing and sales, Satan in the Garden of Eden, and because if you look at chapter 3 of Genesis, when Satan is talking to Eve, he's selling her, and the way he does it is just like a master of selling. The way he twists God's words, the way he gets her to repeat something that's not true, the way that he gets her to start questioning herself. Now, of course, he's using it for the wrong, purposes, but the psychological principles about selling and marketing are absolutely true in any setting. And so it's right there in the Bible, one of the best lessons of how to market and sell and change people's beliefs. And so, that's just one example. Elisha, when he's talking to the the lady the widow that comes to him, that she's her husband's died and she doesn't have any way to make a living, and so he's basically encouraging to go out and sell, learn how to sell stuff. So there's business lessons throughout the Bible, and then there's literally whole books written on them. I forgot the name of the book. I'm sorry, I have it around here somewhere, but it's a rabbi actually wrote a book about all the business lessons in the Bible. And so when I started,
are you talking about Thou Shalt Prosper?
yes, actually, yes,
Right by Daniel Lappin.
Yeah. It's been a few years, but but the point is that just like that, there's so many lessons in the Bible that apply to business that I had this huge resource that I didn't even know was there, and it's because I didn't spend time in my Bible. So how does your faith help you in business? Just crack open that book, because if there's anybody who knows anything about business, I think that God probably knows a little bit more than we do. So he's probably got some pretty good advice in there. So I would say, number one, that's what I would do if I was a business owner.
Yeah, because some they want to know, okay, how does this help my bottom line? That's what they want to know. So
Yep.
And you're right. Whether you believe it or not, you're probably doing some of these things anyway, because all of these principles come from somewhere.
Yep.
It's just like the golden rule. Like, everybody uses the golden rule, but it came from Jesus, right?
Yep.
So, so that's good. So it's been a good conversation, Robert. We can talk all day, but I'm sure people want to know where they can find out more about what you're doing. How can people connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on most of the social media stuff. Most of the handles under the Robert Poole, like a swimming pool with an E on the end. I've got YouTube and Facebook, and pretty active on LinkedIn as well. So feel free to reach out on any of those platforms. And you can also, I'll just throw out my email there directly to, always love meeting great quality people. And anybody who's listening to this show obviously fits in that category. So you can email me at robert@owner-to-operator.net. And love to talk to anybody from your audience, just about what we've been talking about on the show or anything else business related. Be happy to chat. So.
Okay, good. So I'll make sure I link all of that, all your contact information in the description. And so, Robert, thanks for coming on the show. It's I know you have added value to the listeners, and so thank you for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, Larry. It's great chatting with you.
All right. Hey, everybody, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Robert Poole. That's it. That's all I've got for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Listen, if you like the show, please rate it and leave a review in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. If you're watching on YouTube, like it and share it with someone who you know will benefit from it. And don't forget to subscribe so that you can get the updated episodes when they get released. Hey, let's win in life. And in order to do that, you got to keep a growth state of mind.